Greetings, and thank you for joining us for Spin a Yarn Live, a tea time book club and crafting circle. Yay! Today we will be talking about the first arc in One Piece, the Romance Dawn arc. So if you're joining along crafting with us, use the hashtag, or go to Twitter and use the hashtag YarnItAll to post what you're going to be working on during this episode. We'll check that shortly. First, let's talk about the tea we're going to have.
So we are having some Irish cream tea. This is a black tea that there's no... I said Irish cream tea. Irish whiskey cream tea. But there's no whiskey in it, and there's no cream. Disappointing, I know. But this is a tea that Paul and I got at the Georgia Renaissance Festival, if you're ever in Fairburn, Georgia, in April and through June.
I.e. the hottest days you can have a festival.
Lies. July is probably our hottest month. We've been having an unusually cool August this year.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. But anywho. So that is the tea we are enjoying today. It is an absolutely lovely tea. I know Paul likes it quite a bit.
One of my faves.
It is. It's a good tea. This is the second steep of this particular, I can't say bag because I use one of those little tea strainer thingies that just goes in because it's a loose leaf tea. But we're on the second steep of it, so it's good for at least 2 when you make a whole pot.
So yes, here is where we would check the Twitter.
There's cat hair in my tea.
Of course.
Cyrus.
You're in trouble.
Cyrus. I can see his tail twitching. He knows what he did.
He'll be back. Of course, we're still in our non-live, pre-recorded live shows, just to get everything set up. If you happen to find the base version of our last episode where we talked about Dresden, you'll notice there's a huge echo. Hopefully, I fixed that for this episode.
I didn't know there was an echo.
Yeah, there's an echo. It's bad. I think I got it figured out, though.
Okay.
I think my computer was recording both with the microphone and the computer at the same time. But I have it saved, so I should be able to go in there, fix that, get a fixed version up to YouTube, and no one will ever know.
Except if you watch this episode, because we've confessed to it.
So
anywho.
Again, recorded, so we're not going to actually go to the chat or to Twitter, so we're going to just hop right in to the first arc.
Which is of One Piece.
In the manga, chapters 1 through 7.
Yeah.
I forget what the anime is because we're well prepared.
Well, and for me, I will say I'm more familiar with the anime, having watched it when it kind of first came over on the embarrassingly dubbed.
Oh man, the 4Kids version.
4Kids, which was horrifying. I mean, it's super, super bad. But anyway, for those who are not familiar with this particular manga/anime, it is essentially about a group of pirates going around. Their captain wants to be the king of pirates when he, not really when he grows up, it's his current goal.
Yeah. So
the manga kind of starts off with his little backstory, and then we jump forward to where he's sailing around trying to get his crew together. And that's what the first arc is him getting his first mate or his first companion.
So my favorite thing about the first 3 chapters is, so the very first chapter we're introduced to Shanks, who is a captain that young Luffy is our main character, young Luffy really looks up to and wants and respects and wants to emulate. Second chapter we're introduced to Kobe, who is someone who ends up looking up to Luffy and wanting to be more like Luffy. Then the third chapter, we introduce to Zoro, who's actually going to be a member of the crew, and he's someone who meets Luffy on an equal footing. They're going to be crewmates and they're about equal. So it's really interesting to see Luffy's perspective and Luffy from all three perspectives of wanting to emulate, or being emulated, and of the equal footing. It was done really well, that intro first three.
I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Monkey D. Luffy.
Monkey D. Luffy.
And of course, it is Japanese. So in Japan, when you introduce yourself, you give your family name first. So Monkey is his last name if you want to go through Western ideologies, and Luffy is his given name.
Yes.
So Catherine Helene, but if I was in Japan, I would introduce myself as Helene Catherine. Yeah. Because Helene is the clan or family that I am a part of. So, a little bit of that. And then we got Ronorora Zoro. I never say his family name. His name is Zoro, okay?
Yeah.
And when it came over, this is the guy who his fuzz is in my tea. That one.
This one.
So...
We're
getting a glare? Oh, I bet we are getting a glare. Here.
Okay.
Let's bring it down, because the cover is shiny. Because shiny is fun. But anyway, geez, you precious time. But
I totally had it fixed.
So
and then you moved it.
I did move it because shiny. But yeah, so the first couple of chapters is basically we get to know Luffy. We get to know who he is and what his goals are and why. Because Shanks is at the point in the book where we first meet Shanks, he's just kind of a small time pirate captain that's sort of well known. He's made a bit of a name for himself. In this universe, pirates are kind of hunted by the Marines. Well, they translate it as Marines, but it's kind of the equivalent of the U.S. Navy. But again, it's its own little universe, so
yeah,
whatever. But so the backstory, I feel like we should probably read the whole shenanigan with Gold Roger. Should we read the whole shenanigan with Gold Roger? No? Okay. Because Gold Roger is kind of the whole point. He
sailed all around the world, gathered a bunch of treasure, and left it all in that one place. Or in that place. In one piece.
It's a picture of Oda Sensei, how he looks like an alien.
Okay.
Because I didn't see that before. But anyway, so he gathered all this treasure and stuff throughout his entire career, and he put all of his treasure and all of his wealth in one piece. When he's at the executioner's block, he challenges everybody. He's like, "Oh, you want my wealth? You want all the things I gathered? Well, it's yours for the taking if you can find it." And this sparked the age of pirates. In this world.
Yeah, and this world is something like probably 98% water. It has kind of like a vertical thin continent that goes up around where probably what they would call the Prime Meridian is up around, and then like a bunch of islands in the rest of the world, which is all water. It's pretty much water world.
It's kind of like water,
but less Kevin Costner.
Thank goodness for that. It is like Waterworld, but bodies of land are fairly common. Yeah, there are islands all over the place, which is funny because we only run into maybe 3 volcanoes. And, if you know how science works, it's not really how it works. So anyway, so Luffy's goal. Because he wants to find One Piece, but in order to find One Piece, you have to sail all the way around the world.
Yeah.
So he's headed towards the Grand Line, and the Grand Line is kind of like I'm blanking. What's the belt around the Earth? What do you call it?
The equator.
The equator. So around the equator of this world, there's basically this kind of like how in the air you've got jet streams. Of air that travel super fast or kind of have their own set path, just like there are currents in water, they have their own path that they flow by. So this is a belt of water all the way around the Earth, and so he's sailing all the way around it. And it takes quite a while. You figure out from the first chapter, his goal is to have a small crew. A small intimate crew of about 10.
About 10, yeah.
About 10 people. So when he takes this small boat from his home, and it gets destroyed in this whirlpool. Whatever. He saves himself by hiding in a barrel. Runs across Kobe.
Yeah. Who is a kid who wants to be a Marine, but accidentally boarded a pirate ship and is now basically the deckhand for this pirate, Alvida, who's... she wields a huge club.
A spiked club.
A spiked club.
Not like a mace, because a mace is like a ball on a stick. This is just like a standard club with.
And she rules by fear.
Yes, she does. So that's one. So yeah, that's a common theme in the entire manga. Is you come across pirate captains or high-ranking officials in the Marines who they don't really rule with any sort of compassion or fairness. They just rule with the iron fist. Yeah,
there's definitely a strong theme of might makes right that exists in this world.
So that's one thing that when we start following Luffy on his adventures, he's 17 years old. And so he and Kobe end up on this marine base, and there is a pirate hunter, oh my gosh. I'm going to find it.
Roronoa Zoro.
I want to say it right.
You can't say it right. Too many R's.
Oi, I can say it right. Anyway, so we run across Zoro, and Luffy's like, well, maybe I want him to be in my crew. And Kobe's like, no, he's a bad guy, all this stuff. And Luffy's like, oh, well, maybe he is a bad guy and maybe he isn't. Luffy is all about the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Which makes him an extremely endearing and lovable character. But he gets kicked in the teeth a lot for stuff like that. And, literally, he will get kicked and punched and all that. This is not... The thing about when 4Kids Entertainment brought this over from Japan is it was during a time when it was kind of... In the U.S., it was kind of... the thing that if it was a cartoon or if it was illustrated in any manner, it was for kids.
Yeah.
Which, of course, we know now with shows like Rick and Morty, South Park, even The Simpsons and Family Guy and stuff like that. They're not really for kids, not for little kids.
So back in our day.
Yeah, back in our day. But anyway, so when they brought it over and they saw it, they bought the rights to show it in America before they even took a look at it. Because stuff like Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z, minimal editing was needed to make it appropriate for American audiences, because their target demographic was youngish kids. I mean, Sailor Moon, it's pretty easy. Target demographic was middle school kids that were roughly the same age as the characters. So you get to a certain point in the series, and they're like, no, but we might get to that at a later time.
And both Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z, their fight, they both had fights, but it was very not emulatable. I mean, there's some punching with Dragon Ball Z, punching back and forth, but a lot of it is energy and or the ki blast and all that kind of stuff.
Right. In Sailor Moon, of course, it's very mystical. They've got like the magical abilities. Every once in a while, you might see Tuxedo Mask smack someone with a cane, but he's Tuxedo Mask. He's a minor character.
And whereas this has a lot of violence.
A lot of violence. I mean, what was our introduction, I guess, to the fact that this is really not something to be taken lightly? Because when we see Luffy, he's 10 years old when we first meet him. And he wants to go sailing with Shanks and his crew. And these bandits come into town and they kind of insult Shanks and his crew and like dump beer and stuff on him and stuff like that. But Shanks kind of laughs it off and then tries to help clean up the bar owned by one of the women in the village. And Luffy, being 10 years old, is like, oh, why didn't you stick up for yourself like a man and blah blah blah. And Shanks is like, it's just sake. There's no reason to get upset, about stuff like that. They left, whatever. So the bandits come back when the pirates are not there, and they, they're kind of roughhousing in the bar and whatnot, and being generally rude,
Rude.
And Luffy is there, and then he starts yelling at the leader of the bandits because he's like, oh, I'm tough, and I'm going to stand up for my friend Shanks, and blah, 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 blah. Well, the bandits decide to kidnap Luffy and are essentially going to beat the shit out of him because he's being an annoying little brat. Of course, at this point, he's already eaten the gomu gomu no fruit, which means rubber. Gomu is the Japanese word for rubber. So his body is now made of rubber. So they can't they can't really beat him up because you can't really beat up a rubber band. It's just elastic. It will, you can't do anything to it. So he doesn't really feel pain, but it doesn't mean he can't be cut. It doesn't mean he can't be shot point blank.
Yeah.
So they're gonna cut his head off, and Shanks comes to save the day and whatever. And they threaten Shanks with a firearm. I'm being so formal. They threaten Shanks with a gun. They put it to his head, and he's like, "Oh, you shouldn't use this to scare people." And then one of his crewmates shoots the other guy in the head.
Yeah, don't point this at someone unless you mean to use it.
Right.
And then his crewmate shoots the guy who had his gun against Shanks' head, and instant death. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he shoots him right in the temple. He kills him.
So for kids.
Yeah, 4 kids, except totally not.
Yeah.
But 4 Kids Entertainment was like, oh no, this is totally.
So they had to cut out a lot of stuff, change a lot of stuff. One of our heroes' main characters smokes, and of course, American television for kids don't.
You can't have one of the good guys smoking a cigarette all the flippin' time, because he does.
Yeah, so they changed it to a lollipop.
Yeah, so every time he opens his mouth, there's this, round candy on the other end of it. But it makes no sense. No kid holds a lollipop like this, or holds her hand up like this, because they're lighting it. It's just so stupid.
I don't know, I think some kids do, especially back in our generation, because in our generation growing up, America was still coming down from that phase of smoking is cool. Or we had a lot of the smoking is not cool, but then they would show all of the movie stars of the past who, I can't name any of them anymore.
Well,
but
Judi Dench used to smoke a lot.
Judi Dench smoked, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Judi Dench used to smoke a lot. William Shatner. I mean,
wow.
People from there when they were at the height in the 50s and 60s, everybody smoked because it cleaned your lungs. I don't remember what the thing was, but they weren't very knowledgeable about what cigarettes do to you back then. So obviously we know now, and is bad.
But you also bring up a very interesting thing: is Shanks' philosophy. I tried looking up to see if there was an actual philosophical term for this. And I couldn't find anything. Maybe Wisecrack will do an episode on it. Who knows? But the type of philosophy has been brought up kind of by comedians or whatnot. But it's the idea of be serious only about things that are serious. Mm-hmm. So, the bandits spill sake all over Shanks. And he can just laugh it off because it's just sake. What does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? Right. But kidnap and threaten and kill his friend, and he's not going to hold anything back. Right,
threatening to kill not only his friend, but his friend who's a 10-year-old kid. Yeah. So he, of course steps up to defend, and it's not outright said that the rest of his crew, the one member of his crew whom I believe is his second mate, I don't remember his name or if they give him a name, but I'm pretty sure he just shoots or beats all the other bandits to death. Yeah. And then the head of the bandits grabs Luffy in the scuffle and runs off. And so Shanks goes to save Luffy, because once you eat what's referred to as the devil fruit, which is the secret treasure of the sea.
And it gives you some power based on what the fruit is. So the Gomu Gomu no me? Something. I forget Japanese.
I think it's the hiragana he.
But it turns Luffy's body completely into rubber, so he can stretch, he can bounce, do all these things. Yeah. Lots of cool abilities. There's other ones that are more esoteric. Some turn you into animals. Or
some can turn you into smoke or fire. There are elemental ones, and there are the animal ones, and a whole bunch of other things, and they get even more and more random throughout the series because Oda Sensei is awesome.
He is. So, but the downside is you sink in seawater. You lose all of your power, all of your energy. You just can't do anything, and you just become a hammer in the water and just sink. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that Shanks is telling Luffy, because he's 10 years old and he wants to travel the sea with the pirates and be a pirate and be a cool dude, and Shanks is like, you can't be a good pirate if you can't swim. He's 10 years old and he doesn't know how to swim. So Luffy's like, well, I'm going to learn how to swim, and I'm going to be an awesome pirate, then you have to take me on your crew. And he's like, oh, and Shanks is like, all right, fine, if you learn how to swim in a year or whatever. And then he eats the fruit that Shanks and his crew had gotten, but it was, it's a fruit, so Luffy thought it was just food to eat. So he eats it without them noticing, and then all of a sudden he's made of rubber, and Shanks is like, now you can't swim at all.
Yeah.
And Luffy's like, what? So, he freaks out, but then he's like, fine, I will be a pirate who just doesn't swim.
Yeah.
I won't fall in the sea.
I just won't fall in the sea.
I won't fall in the sea. So, of course, the bandit has him on the little boat, and he's served his purpose as a getaway hostage, so he just shoves him off the boat, and he falls into the water, and Luffy, of course, can't swim. So... he starts... So he starts yelling and all that stuff, and then a Sea King, and what a Sea King is a huge creature of the sea.
Basically a huge sea serpent. But they come in a lot of weird varieties.
The one that we see in the beginning of the book basically is like a giant eel with teeth and this. And it's basically a giant eel. But we see, as the series progresses, we see so many different varieties. Because that's what's really cool about the series, and what kind of throws a lot of people off about it is not only because the illustration is not like... it's not really super sharp. Like, if you've ever seen the Hellsing OVAs... those are like super, super sharp.
Let's see if they can get a picture of this.
He's gonna hold it up until the...
okay.
Until it catches up.
You figured it out. Yeah, you can probably see that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, big sea monster.
Yeah, so it's basically a giant sea monster. And it comes and it eats the bandit in his boat. And then Luffy's struggling in the water. It sees Luffy and it's like, ooh, dessert, So it goes to try to get Luffy, and Shanks comes out of nowhere and grabs Luffy to protect him, and then, glares at the sea monster, and it's like, get lost! And the sea monster's like, okay! And then it runs off away.
Runs away.
And Luffy's, you were looking at the scene, Luffy's crying, and Shanks is like, oh, everything will be okay, and all that stuff, and Luffy's like, but Shanks, your arm! And we zoom out, and we see that Shanks lost his left arm, because the Sea King bit it off while he was trying to rescue Luffy. Yeah. So Luffy's so upset. It's just it's a really great scene, both in the anime and in the manga. It's really, it's such a good scene.
It's really good.
It's done very, very well. So Shanks is like, everything, so fine, it's just an arm. Most important thing is you're safe, So of course, obviously, even though he's a pirate and he's a scoundrel and all that stuff, he's still obviously a good guy. He's like Captain Jack Sparrow. He's got a heart of gold, but he's a rascal.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely can get more serious than Jack Sparrow can.
Oh, well, yeah.
But for things that don't hold a lot of importance, he just lets it go. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because that's the guy that Luffy looks up to.
Okay, he emulates him.
It's a little bit of emulation, but when you read further chapters, Luffy doesn't really super emulate him. He has his own philosophy that's kind of... you can see where it's based off of that. He is a major goofball all the time. When somebody's really... When he needs to be serious, he is serious. But he can also fly off the handle a lot easier than Shanks ever does. And again, he's kind of new to the pirate thing.
So he always tries to see the good in people. So he goes to the Marine base where they have Zoro, and he convinces Zoro. He's like, I want you to be on my crew. You're clearly, a good guy. He helped save the townsfolk from this stupid
kid. One of the little girls came to try and give him food because he's... Okay, I jumped ahead a little bit. So, he tried to save townsfolk by beating up the son of the lieutenant.
Well, he didn't beat up the son of the lieutenant. The lieutenant's son has this wolf that is essentially his pet, and he just lets the wolf kind of run wild. And the girl was gonna be killed by the wolf because it's a wolf, and oh look, little kid, yummy snack. So Zoro, whose fighting style is 3 katana, kills the wolf because it's gonna attack this kid, and we find out very quickly that Luffy might beat the crap out of you, but the chances of him killing you are very, very low. you have to really piss off Luffy for him to actually want to kill you. But mostly he's just going to fight you until you don't fight back anymore, or you're knocked out or whatever. Zoro
he beats you into agreeing with him. Is what Luffy does.
He's like, no, you will come with me or whatever. So, but with Zoro, he really doesn't care. Zoro's goal in life is to become the best swordsman in the world.
Yep.
And in the first chapter, we learn why. At the dojo that he was taught at, the daughter of the sensei there was the best fencer by far. Her kendo skills exceeded that of most of the adults there. And Zoro, with frustrated Zoro, there was an age difference. She was 4 years older than him or something like that, because I think he was 10 and she was 12 or something. I'm not sure. But so she's older and all that stuff, and they talk about how they make an agreement. One of them will be the best swordsman in the world. And then, of course, because it's anime or it's Japan, there has to be some sort of tragedy. She dies a couple of days later from a stupid accident. Like, she falls down the stairs and breaks her neck. So, something stupid. So, of course, Zoro is like, well, I made a promise. I have to be the best. So, that's what Zoro is doing. Zoro, who has a terrible sense of direction. And we're not we're alluded to that in the beginning of the manga, because he says, he was on his way somewhere. I don't remember what he said, but he got lost on the way and he couldn't find his way back. So he was like, the only way I could make a living was to use my skills, so I became a pirate hunter. So he would hunt pirates that had bounty on their head, and he would bring them to the Marines. Yep. Dead or alive. And we don't really ever find out how many times he brings them in alive. Because with a katana, there's only so much you can not slice or stab. And he's he's the first one to pull the sword out and be like, all right, well, I'm just going to deal with this because you're annoying me. So there's definitely a difference of personality there. Luffy's very carefree. He's willing to let things go, whereas Zoro is a little bit more, I don't want to be annoyed or have this distract me or get in my way, so I'm just going to cut it down because it's in my way. Yeah. So there's a line that Paul loves.
So
his favoriteest line ever.
So Luffy's been trying to get Zoro to join the crew, and finally they work out a deal, basically. And Zoro talks about his goal, and he says, if you get in the way of me becoming the #1 swordsman, I will have you cut your stomach, which references the old Japanese tradition of seppuku, which is suicide to regain honor.
Yeah.
And then Luffy responds, if you can't do, or you want to be on the crew of the Pirate King, if you can't even become the #1 swordsman, I too will be embarrassed.
Basically saying that if Zoro can't become, or if basically saying that if Luffy gets in the way of Zoro becoming the best swordsman, he will understand how he's essentially dishonored his friend and would, of course, go ahead.
Right. It's also a little bit beyond that. So Japan still, it's getting a little better, but still has
manga translation is different from the one we read on.
Yeah. It's kind of the same.
It is.
But they have a very bad suicide problem, and a lot of it stems from the appearance. You must always have the proper appearance, and so
it's the idea of death before dishonor.
Yeah, and so it's really bad, and it still carries over. It is getting a little better now, some preventative measures and whatnot, but it was to the point that if somebody committed suicide by jumping in front of trains, delaying the trains, the conductor of the train may commit suicide because they brought dishonor upon the company due to having the train be late, even though it wasn't their fault. So big, huge problem. But one of the things is the head of companies would kind of be that way, and if one of their employees embarrassed them, it's kind of on them to regain the honor of the honor of the company, and so it's a very bad situation. So when Luffy says this, obviously it refers to this whole bad situation,
right.
But it is a very powerful line.
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially cementing the fact that they are comrades. And
yeah.
the term that gets used later on in the manga is nakama. Nakama, which means more than friends, but not lovers.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, you couldn't be more my family if you were blood.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. So it's a powerful scene in that it illustrates that they are both willing to go the distance that they want for each other. You know, Zoro wants to be the best swordsman in the world because one, he made a promise, but if he's going to be on the Pirate King's crew, then of course he's got to be the best swordsman in the world, because his captain would be embarrassed if
right.
he wasn't, kind of thing. Which it is repeated multiple times for Zoro. Zoro is very much our samurai-like character. Yeah. Even though down the line we meet some samurais and Zoro doesn't know who the hell they are. You know, he's like, what are you doing? Go away. In fact, he's what's interesting about Zoro's character design is because he's definitely a samurai-ish kind of person, but, you know, the sense of honor and, of course, the wielding of the katana and stuff like that. But he's also left-handed. And in Japan, even if you're left-handed, you would still eat using chopsticks with your right hand. You would still draw your sword with your right hand, so your sword would be on your left.
Yeah.
Zoro wears all three of his swords on his right, because he's left-handed, and he's going to draw out with his left hand. So, I mean, from an artistic standpoint and knowing about Japanese culture and stuff like that, the fact that Oda Sensei I say Oda Sensei. What is?
No, he has the swords on the correct side.
In this one, but later on in the anime, because we've talked about it before, how he wears them on the right. He is left-handed. I know this to be true. But so some of you might be thinking he uses 3 katana. How is that? He uses one in each hand and one in his mouth.
Yeah.
Because he's that badass. He is. Zoro is, hands down,
Here's a
the most badass
back
character.
image of that.
Yes. In his mouth. It's very silly. The show itself, the manga itself,
it's one of these that
silly.
is...
It's action
it's really silly, but again, when it goes serious, it goes super serious.
Because Luffy is rarely without a smile on his face.
Yeah.
And when the smile goes away, you go, oh. Shit's gonna go down.
There we go. Really good example of that. Probably next episode we do of this. I read ahead a little bit. I mean, obviously, we're caught up to the manga. So we're trying to get the videos caught up, which will take a while.
But another bit of perspective for those who don't read the manga or watch the anime. This is volume 1. You know what volume we're on right now? 87. 87.
Yeah, and this has something like 8 or 9 chapters per volume.
I think it's 8 chapters.
And we're on like chapter 873. 74?
74 was the most recent one to come out. And the anime is still ongoing as well. The anime is... I'm not sure how far behind the anime is, because I'm not caught up with the anime.
Yeah.
I'm caught up with the manga. Hi, Osiris. Do you want to come up here? Sarah Blair.
So, that also brings me to kind of Luffy's philosophy. We were talking about how he's very goofy. He just loves having fun. He doesn't really care too much about rules or what society says things are like Zoro being a bad guy, when Zoro protected the townsfolk, and Luffy was like, okay. But what Luffy really respects is people who stand up for what they believe in, for their values, for their dreams. Like, dreams are super serious to Luffy, not nighttime dreams, but what you wish to do in life.
His dream is to become the Pirate King.
When we meet Kobe, you know, he's working on as a deckhand for this pirate for like 2 or 3 years.
Who beats him.
And he's a mess. He's kind of a complete coward. So Luffy pretty much treats him as if he's nothing.
Yeah.
At the beginning. Like, he'll explain why, or Luffy will explain why he does things and what he's willing to do to get his dreams and whatnot. But he doesn't really care about Kobe at first until at some point,
Kobe stands up to the pirate.
Stands up to the pirate. Because he has this dream to be a Marine, and after insulting her, kind of like Luffy did, he then says, I will become a Marine and capture you to the pirate lady. And Luffy sees this, and it's like, okay, well said, we are now friends.
Yeah.
It's like, that's all it took. And of course, Luffy does not expect you to be as strong as him.
No.
And like, so even though he respects people standing up for themselves, he knows when people are at their limits, and there's no way Kobe could win against these pirates, because absolutely not. So as soon as Kobe says that, Luffy's like, okay, we're friends, now take a step back, I will deal with this.
Yeah. Because Kobe, I think, is 12? I think he's supposed to be like 12 years old.
And Luffy's 17
and
at
Luffy's
this
17.
point.
Yeah. So Luffy's like, okay, so now that you've stopped being a coward and feeling sorry for yourself, I will help you win this little fight. Why would you leave? He left.
Now Kobe, at the end of this arc that we're talking about, he does end up asking to join the Marines at the Marine base that is now no longer headed by a complete jerk, thanks to Luffy and Zoro. And so he joins the Marines, and he's like, and with Luffy and Zoro, he says, even though we're on opposite sides, I'm glad I met you, and next time we meet, I will bring you in. You know, and that's the dream, and of course Luffy's all about that. Zoro is of course just fine with it, because now Zoro does a really good job of being a first mate. Or, in Star Trek terms, number 1 or number 2. What does Picard call Riker?
Number 1.
Yeah, number 1. Zoro is very, very good at being that support character that holds everything together.
Which is really important, because later on in this series we see how necessary it is that Luffy has a very carefree, fun, kid-like spirit, and that's great, but every once in a while you do have to put your foot down, even with your own crew. And so Zoro is there to kind of be like, you really, like, I know you want to let this go and stuff like that, but you really can't. Because this will keep happening if you just let it go. So even though Luffy doesn't like it, Zoro kind of helps him to put his foot down. And
it's also very respectful. It's like, he always treats Luffy as the captain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a very powerful ally that Luffy has.
Yeah, because Luffy, again, he's 17, and I think the idea is that Zoro is 19 or 20 at this point when they first meet. So it becomes kind of a common theme that Luffy is, even though he's the captain, he's one of the younger members of the crew. Most of the other members of the crew are older, either by a couple of years or even by a great vast number of years. We've got one crew member that joins later on. I think he's 80s. He's in his 80s. He's like 87 years old or something like that. But we'll get to that when we get to that. He's a really cool character.
He's great. But that's going to be many episodes from now.
It is. But I'm encouraging them to read ahead.
Yes.
Mind you, if you're gonna, I told you, Volume 1, 87, I think, is available in bookstores now. That's what's come over from Japan, I should say. Because, of course, you gotta do the translation and the publishing and blah, 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 blah. So, as I said, the Japan release in the Jump magazine that was just put out was chapter 874. Yeah. So, we're getting there. But anyway... It's an investment. The anime also follows the manga very closely.
Pretty well. And there are a couple times where I think probably what happened is the anime was catching up too close to the manga, so they added in some filler arcs.
Fillers, yeah.
The first filler, well, not the first filler. One of the big fillers right before they get to the Grand Line is kind of not so good, but most of the fillers are pretty good.
Most of the fillers are really good. They're either highly entertaining or they're just short enough that you don't really mind them. Or sometimes they actually help to just lead right into the next situation.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the times they're just meant to be amusing little side ventures, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the contest is in the manga. This is a really great arc, you guys. But it's really far down the line.
But it's also easy because One Piece is kind of divided into arcs. And if you want to give it a try, if you see us and you say, okay, let me just give it a try. I know it's a while, and you can do it with the anime, that works. But get up through Nami's arc, and you'll know that when you get there. If you finish Nami's arc and it's still not for you, then it's not going to be for you.
It's not going to be for you.
But it's going to get you, and unfortunately that's like 30 episodes. But it is worth it.
It is worth it. Nami is a great character.
Yeah.
She's a pain in the ass, but she's awesome.
But yeah, so it's all done in arcs, but...
the arcs vary in length, wildly.
Yeah. But in the manga, there are some arcs that also... If you only saw the anime and you had to guess which arcs were in the manga and which were only in the anime, you'd be wrong a decent amount of time, because we meet that guy in 2 episodes from now with the treasure chest. That is in the manga, but it kind of feels like, if you're not expecting it.
Yeah, see, I'm more familiar with the first couple episodes of the anime. That's how I was introduced to it, and I only started reading the manga when the anime is not caught up to the manga now. So, it's not. I mean, of course it's not. So I started reading the manga in order to catch up, because things happen, and you really want to know what's happening.
Yeah.
As much as I hate to admit it, it's almost soap opera with all this stuff that's going on, but because it's action adventure with a lot of comedy thrown in, it works for me. Because there's gotta be action adventure in it and stuff. Yeah. So that's why I love Zoro. I think Zoro's probably my favorite character after Luffy, because he's just such a badass with the swords. It's really great. There are
Stop playing with that.
Sorry. When his friend at the dojo, the daughter of the sensei, dies, he requests her sword.
Yeah.
He wants her sword. So her sword is the only sword that he has that is white. And he's got 2 just kind of whatever swords now, and then later on he'll get 2 others, and then down the line he'll need to get another 3rd one. So like 2 of the kind of random ones that he has right now break. He needs to get 2 new ones, and he does. And they're both special in their own way. One of them, I believe, breaks down the line, and then he has to get another one, which is kind of cool, because the next one that he get kind of links up with another member of the crew that they get down the line. It's again really, 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 really great. I mean, I cannot talk up this manga / anime enough. I really, really can't.
And it's really good because, as we said, it is the comedy, it is the action, but then it gets super serious moments, like Shanks losing his arm. Yeah. Super serious. Zoro's backstory.
Also super serious.
Like, you start looking and you're like, okay, where is this going? Then you get to the end, you're like, no. Like, Oda Sensei, the artist.
Great build-up of, even in the manga. Although I have to admit, when they do the backstory for Zoro in the manga, I think the anime does it better.
Maybe.
I think personally, because in the manga it's very abbreviated. It's only a couple pages in the manga, and of course, you've seen the manga. It's comic book, graphic novel format. But in the anime, it's an entire episode. Yeah. That they get into it. So
and of
there's
course
more detail.
It has the help of the music, building, and all that, like all the elements, the color, and everything.
It's so good. I mean, they hit all the main points. It's just some of the scenes are extended. Yeah. For instance, when we see it in the manga, he's just there at the dojo. But in the anime, it shows him coming to the dojo. Yeah. And it shows him trying to challenge everybody by holding as many, what is the bamboo practice
Shinai.
as many shinai as he can in his mouth and in both of his hands, and it's really dumb, but it's so funny and it's so cute. But then, you know, this cute little kid who wants to learn to be the best swordsman in the world, he grows up and he doesn't have a bounty on his head at this point.
Yeah.
But if I recall correctly, he's the first to get a bounty.
Is he? I'm not sure. I think both he and Luffy get it at the same time.
Maybe they get it at the same
But,
time.
I mean,
but he's more well known.
Yeah,
His name
he's
is
already
known.
well known as a pirate hunter,
Mm-hmm.
and that's probably why he doesn't have a bounty, because he goes after pirates
after
and brings them in. So of
into
course,
the Marines, yeah.
even though he's not a lawman, he's still bringing in the bad guys.
Yeah.
So he's well known and feared by a lot of people. A lot of the early pirate captains that we meet already know him.
They do, and they often think, oh, he's here for my head. They don't know who Luffy is.
No.
Then, of course, Zoro is like, well, this is my captain now. And everyone's like, who the hell is this kid?
Yeah, it's like,
But, it's
I think
good.
there's one
It's
point
good.
later on that actually says, oh my god, if Zoro's not the captain, who's the captain? They're like really afraid of this like big monster of a man.
Oh, right.
And then Luffy comes out.
Right, because they're like, who would Zoro, of all people, who would he follow? You know, who would he respect that much? And it's this kid that's a couple years younger than he is. And they're just like, wait. Now, one thing we didn't mention about Shanks, which needs to be because it's the pinnacle thing of the whole situation, is that Shanks has a straw hat. It's a straw hat with a red sash around it. And so when Shanks loses his arm and, and helps Luffy out and everything like that, their crew ends up leaving Luffy's island. They're like, yeah, this is the last time. We're not going to come back. We've been on this island. We've been using it as a home base for too long or whatever. And they're like, we're totally going to leave. And Luffy's like, I am going to be a great pirate. One day you'll see I will be the pirate king. 10 years old, and he announces this. And, and Shanks is like, oh, you're going to be the pirate king, huh? That means you're going to be a better, stronger pirate than I am. All right. Well, then this is my hat is my most precious treasure to me. And he puts it on Luffy's head, and he's like, when you become the best pirate, when you become pirate king, return this hat to me. And he gives it to him, and Luffy's crying, and it's a great scene.
And remember that scene for like 6 episodes down.
It is a very important scene, but that's because in the first couple of chapters, we see him, of course, receive the hat, but we don't see Luffy's reaction really to anybody who looks at his hat or touches his hat or anything like that. So we see it when he first meets Nami.
Well. Yeah, but we haven't got there yet.
No, I mean, we haven't gotten there yet.
So we will talk about that next episode we do on One Piece.
Yeah. So we're going to have to start wrapping it up pretty soon.
Yeah.
But so it is very important to note that Shanks was the one who gave Luffy his hat. Yeah. Or as they say in Japanese, his boshi.
So, of these first 7 chapters, what is your favorite moment?
My favorite moment is, of course, a moment with Zoro, because I love me some Zoro. Zoro is tied up outside the Marine base. He made a deal with the son of the lieutenant, saying, if I can survive for 1 month tied up outside, no food, no water, in the sun, blah, 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 tied up like this, then you will let me go. And there won't be any charges or anything because I killed your stupid dog. And the son is like, okay, fine, we'll do it like that. Of course he's not going to keep his end of the bargain.
He's a liar.
Yeah, he's totally a liar. He's like, in 3 days I'm going to have him executed anyway. So Zoro and Kobe figure this out. Luffy and Kobe figure this out. And they go to Zoro, and Zoro, they've already kind of pestered him a little bit, and he's like, just go away, I don't want to be part of your crew, blah.
And yeah, like 17 more days I'll be out of here anyways.
Yeah, and they're like, no, you won't. Because they're going to execute you in 3 days. Yeah. I heard the son talking about it. And Zoro, who in general is accepted as kind of this monster who does just kind of kill and cut you down without really even thinking, is still an honorable man. Mm-hmm. He's a man of his word. If he makes you a promise, he's going to keep it. So the idea that someone wouldn't keep their end of the bargain, he's like, what? No, of course he's going to keep his end of the bargain. And they're
Yeah.
like, no, he's not. We heard him saying he's going to kill you. And he's like, well, you know, I mean, it's not as funny as saying, well, that's just rude. But that's essentially what he's saying. He of course, gets very angry. Luffy gets his katana back. Luffy went into the base to find his katana. In Japanese, you don't pluralize a word by putting an S on the end.
Yeah.
There's not really a plurality unless you actually say 3 of or 5 of or whatever. So, of course, Luffy thinks, well, he only fights with 1 katana. So which
makes sense.
Makes sense. Most people do. So he goes and he finds the katana, but he finds 3 of them. And he's like, well, I don't know which one is Zoro's, so I'm just going to take all 3.
Yeah.
So Kobe is trying to untie Zoro and trying to help him out. And the Marines see this. They're like, oh, he's trying to escape. And the lieutenant's son is there. And he's like, let's just shoot both of them. So the Marines go to shoot them. And Luffy jumps down from the window that he's at. And because he's made of rubber, he blocks the bullets and they go, you know,
they kind of go,
and they bounce back. Because it's not a point blank range.
Right.
And again, we're living in basically the equivalent of piratey time. So it's not a sharp bullet. It's the equivalent of, I guess, buckshot. You know, it's just the round ball bearings, the large round ball bearings. So he's able to deflect them and shoot them back. And he gives Zoro his swords. And he's like, okay, you know, I want you to come be a part of my crew, blah, 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 blah. And he finally gets Zoro untied. And the Marines at this point are like, okay, guns are no good, so let's go in with our swords. So they go, and everyone goes to attack all at once, and Zoro gets his swords out and defends. So he's standing there with 2 of his swords up, and he's got 1 in his mouth, and that's when he's telling Luffy, you know, oh, if you get in my way get in my way of being the best swordsman in the world, I will have you, you know, basically kill yourself in order to apologize. You know, don't do that. That's terrible. But anyway, so yeah.
Is that your scene that you're
building up to? Yes, this is the scene.
Let me know when you want me to show.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
This is my favorite part, both in the anime and in the manga, when he's standing there and he's deflecting all of these things. And he says to them, if any of you move, I will kill you. And all the Marines are like, ah! Because what I love about it is that Zoro, with a look, strikes fear into everybody. So that's my favorite scene in these first couple chapters of the manga. Mine personally, because Zoro's such a badass.
Yeah, I think this scene, when he gets on, that happens. In the anime, it has this huge guitar riff too.
Oh my god, it's so cool.
Like, if you analyze it, it's really kind of silly and corny.
Of course
but like,
it
when
is.
it happens, it's so awesome.
And bear in mind that when the anime first came out, it was mid-90s, so guitar riffs were everywhere.
Oh yeah. So my favorite action scene is actually just after that.
When he's fighting the lieutenant himself.
So Luffy and the lieutenant, Luffy is pounding the lieutenant's face in, and the lieutenant's son basically has Kobe as a hostage, gun pointed to his head, and says, you better stop hitting my dad or I will shoot Kobe, or shoot this kid. And Luffy looks at him and is like, so multiple awesome parts about this. Kobe, who was this huge coward, has learned to stand up for himself, to be willing to die for his own dreams. And he says, this is not how Marines should be. Luffy, don't worry about me. At which point Luffy gets this big smile because it's somebody standing up for his dreams. So he goes to punch the son, and of course he has the extending arm. Mm-hmm. But like, we see this scene of the punch, and all we see is Luffy's face that says, nice! Because what happens...
With the lieutenant standing over him, having stood up, and is clearly going to hit him with this axe that he's got.
Because what happened is Luffy was able to trust Zoro, and as Luffy was doing this, Zoro blocks the lieutenant's axe.
I don't think he blocks it. I'm pretty
or
sure...
just kills them or something.
I think the idea is that Zoro went in and just sliced through the lieutenant.
I don't remember what it was in the anime, and of course...
In the anime, he falls over dead with blood shooting out of his chest, so I think he's dead.
Oh, yeah. You see the 2 pages. That's all the information we're given in the manga. But yeah, Luffy knows the captain's behind him because both Luffy and Zoro are good fighters.
Right.
He knows that. So when he goes to punch, he already knows, like, he can sense Zoro coming in to do that. And that's why he says nice. And it's such a good scene of already they have such good battle chemistry that he can just leave his back open and Zoro has it.
Yeah.
In their very first fight together.
And in the anime, it's basically frame for frame. But the voice acting is really good. In the Japanese anime, I can't stress this enough, when 4Kids Entertainment did it, the voice acting is terrible. But anyway, hey boy. But so anyway, when they do it in the anime, it's the same. You see Lieutenant Morgan, the name of the Marine, standing over Luffy, about to smack him with the axe while Luffy is punching his son. And then he punches the son, and it goes back to Luffy, and he goes, nice. And then you see Zoro saying, goes, Zoro. Because nice, so it's a nice pacing.
It's really good pacing.
It's really good pacing. And you're just like...
Yeah, one other thing I like about this anime's message...
Good boy.
Which, you know, you would think pirates and killing and all this is a bad message. Yes. But one thing that's interesting is Kobe, this character we grow to like, wants to be a Marine. After the lieutenant's gone, the rest of the Marines are really good people. Like, they basically let Luffy and Zoro go unofficially.
Yeah.
It's like, we can't... You've saved this town, but we can't, you know, obviously having a law enforcement person just let the criminals stay.
Right.
Kind of bad. But they let them go. It's like, you saved us, we'll turn a blind eye this time.
Right.
So what's interesting is, in the Marines, there is a lot of good people. A lot of highly moral people. Yeah. And there's also... some not so moral people.
Yeah, you're gonna have corruption.
And the same happens in the pirate world. There are pirates like Shanks and Luffy's crew who are effectively moral people who go after bad guys.
I wouldn't say they go after bad guys. I don't think Shanks goes after bad guys, but he lives his life the way that he wants to live. Luffy going after the bad guys is just sort of something that ends up happening.
Well, same with Shanks with the bandits.
Right, it just sort of happened.
It sort of happened, but Shanks doesn't pillage innocent towns so much. Like, he goes in and he befriends the towns, and then they're happy to give him stuff.
Yes, give, and Luffy doesn't do that intentionally, but a crew member comes on board later, who, I mean, her goal is, she's a very important character because she's essentially the crew's accountant. Yeah.
We'll talk about her.
Right, but in a little bit, we're gonna meet her pretty soon.
Yeah, we'll meet her pretty soon.
What usually ends up happening is, like, Luffy and the crew get to an island or they get to a town or whatever, and more often than not, the town either has a corrupt individual, like a mayor or an ambassador or somebody who's influencing the government and is no good, or there's another pirate crew terrorizing them or whatever. And just for the sake of not wanting to see good people get hurt, Luffy and his crew will, of course, defend and usually beat the crap out of whoever it is who's being stupid.
Yeah.
And so the townsfolk usually thank them. And in the best...
By the time they're eating. Yeah.
Right, and the best way to thank them, and as far as Luffy is concerned, is with food.
Yes.
Luffy loves him some meat. I mean, he is crazy
and we don't see it yet, but Zoro loves him some beer.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a scene, probably
a great scene.
30 live streams of One Piece from now.
Oh, man, it's a long way away, but
it's really good. We'll get there.
To it.
We'll get there.
But yeah, so Zoro, you can't call him a drunk. I don't think I've ever seen him act drunk.
No.
But yeah, he loves him some sake, and Luffy loves him some meat, and everybody has their own vice on the crew. And we'll talk about it the more we get to it. But we're pretty much out of time. I think we're actually at the 60-minute mark.
Oh my god.
Which is great, because usually we go way overboard. But yes, if you are not familiar with it, and if you're willing to make an investment, because it's a lot.
I think the anime is on Crunchyroll. We are not sponsored by Crunchyroll.
We're not
yet.
We don't even have Crunchyroll.
No, we don't.
But yes,
I think it's on there. And like I said,
it is, because that's where my friend is watching it. Yeah. It's
so
on
try
Crunchyroll.
very hard to do the first, I think, about 30 episodes, which gets you through Nami's arc. And if that seems like a lot, treat it like an anime series that is about Nami, where pretend she's the main character, because it'll bring you through her arc to basically really join
the crew.
And it's a good story to get there. And as I said, at that point, once you get there, you're gonna love the series.
If as Paul said earlier, if you're not hooked by the time you get through Nami's arc, then it's probably not a series that's for you, and that's totally fine. A lot of people can't get past the animation. Yeah,
the animation, the art style is kind of.
It's not a clean art style. It's very loose. Like, not in saying that the artwork is bad in any way, but
you saw some examples of
the
what it looks like, and it kind of stays at a similar level.
It does.
Throughout most of the series.
And just because, like with Luffy, the perspective gets distorted a little bit because he can stretch his arms out. Now, we're going to meet another character later on who his main fighting is actually with his feet. He's a chef, so he doesn't want to use his hands to fight, so he's a kicking expert. And some of the perspectives when he fights throws a lot of people off. They often, from my experience, this particular character is often referenced for the animation's just weird. And that's fine. Yeah. If you can't get past the animation,
then just keep watching our live streams and we'll tell you all the important details.
We'll tell you all the important details, hopefully in 60 minutes. Because, trust, there will be scenes, there'll be ones we'll go over because it's so good. Yeah. It's so good. And we'll talk forever about it.
So here we would go to, again, Twitter, to #YearnItAll.
I got 3 rounds in.
I've only got that far in. I think I did a little 3 layers. It's going to take me a lot longer than I expected.
It's bold.
So we would go there, see what kind of progress you've all made. Of course, when we're actually doing this live stream, I have the chat up. Of course, since we're kind of doing it private to get build up some library before we actually start.
Well, in practice.
Doing live. We're doing
never
practice
really done
and whatnot.
stuff in front of a microphone and a recording camera. That's the word. Camera. We're good in this.
Yeah, the live chat is sitting there completely blank because nobody knows it exists because it is private.
Even if you don't like us, come back for Osiris.
Aww. With his little paws. You can't see his paws because he's completely black.
He drooled.
So we also have the subreddits r/Yarnitall is for you all to just share your own crafting stuff, talk about things you're doing. It's basically just community for y'all. And then r/SpinAYarnLive is where we'll put up questions for the show. We'll put up some ideas that you can respond to for our next show, that kind of stuff. We'll also put those things on Twitter.
So, thank you for joining us. If you want to read along with us, next week we are reading Robert Aston's first book in Aspirin. Like the medicine.
Yes.
Yes. His first book in his series.
The Myth Adventures. So, the first book is...
What's the first book called? Because I don't remember.
I've just blanked on it.
You want me to run and get the book real quick? I'll run and get it.
Sure.
I'll be right back!
I will tell our loyal fans about Patreon. So in addition to all those other ways, if you do want to help support us so we can do these more often, so we can buy craft supplies, or buy the stuff to make our own craft supplies, then we have a Patreon set up, which will be linked somewhere. I think it's linked below. So there's that. So yeah, next time on Spin a Yarn Live.
Robert Asprin's Another Fine Myth. So this is the first in the Myth Inc. series.
Yes.
I read that. Well, I didn't read it. Paul read it to me. A number of years ago. So it's been a while since I've read this. Obviously, it's not a very long book, the first one.
Short one.
It is available to download on your e-reader, whatever you're using for that. It is available to download because I downloaded it. Paul's reading the actual paperback.
Yes.
It's a trade paperback.
And if some of you happen to be employees of Audible and want to have Audible sponsor us, we will talk about how it might be available there. I don't know.
Don't know if it's available on audio. We'll have to find out. But it is available to download.
It's a more popular series. I think it's probably available in a lot of ways you can get books.
FYI, the cover probably doesn't look like this now. This is an old copy.
This is a reprinting of the original because...
1978.
Yes.
This one was printed in 2002.
Yeah. And I think the original book was just this section here, that image. That was the whole front cover without all this purple border.
But yeah, funny series.
It's a great series. We will talk about it next time.
Indeed. So thank you for joining us this time talking about One Piece. Again, cannot recommend it enough if you are an anime action/comedy with just the right hint of drama in it to help keep you drawn in.
And remember, preferably subs, so it has Japanese voices. I don't know if whoever's doing the dubs now has gone back and done it, but do not go for the 4Kids version because they've edited everything. I think 4Kids for One Piece took about 60 or 80 episodes and condensed it to about like 20 episodes. So you can imagine it's not the best.
Yeah, I believe... I got a friend who's watching it on Crunchyroll, and I'm pretty sure that the first couple of seasons, she's watched a fair bit into what 4Kids animation had. I haven't heard really any complaints from her. So
it's probably not...
She's not watching the dubbed, though. She's watching sub.
Yeah, watch sub.
Just do sub.
It's just better.
It'll help you improve your vocalization skills on Japanese. Okay, come on.
And everybody wants that.
Everybody wants to be able to speak, Everyone wants to be able to speak Japanese. I would say something in Japanese right now, but my tongue is going to get tied. So I'll just say, matane!
Matane! Okay. Hold on.